welcome to my channel. I'm Tiffany, a retired librarian turned homeschool mom. This is being filmed on the 12th of December, 2023. The papasan is behind me because my Christmas tree is in its space. The fabric is there because I'm in the process of covering my outdoor furniture along with my mother's sewing machine. The strange photo you see behind me, which I should probably move at some point, is a photo of my great uncle and my grandmother, my mother's mother. My mother died recently at the end of September, rather suddenly. My father gave me that at her memorial, which was about a week or so ago, on December 1st, which would have been her 67th birthday. So that is why there is a mess behind me. Besides, of course, yeah, I got all my mother's sewing stuff, at least what I thought was all my sewing stuff. Okay, moving on. So we're going to be looking at this thing. This is Titanic, One Voyage, A World of Untold Stories. This is a mini series from the writer of Downton Abbey. If you're not familiar with that, that was the whole house thing, upstairs, downstairs, family thing. I watched some of it and I got irritated with it. Moving on. So this came out in 2012. So there are four little episodes of this. This is interesting in its formatting. So each of the episodes starts at the beginning of Titanic taking off, I believe in Southampton. And then it kind of tells a different tale of different people until the end, which shows basically the end. I'm not sure I'm particularly happy with the end because it just ends with them in the ships. But nonetheless, so the first, you get introduced to the interesting cast of characters here. So you do cover, again, you're looking at the first class, the second class, so that's mainly focusing on the servants and the some of the staff. And then you look at steerage, which is third class. So the first class, you are staring at, let me bring up this IMDb thing. I just watched this last night. So a couple different things. Mainly the family is, you're focusing on the family of Grex, which focuses on Lady Georgiana, who is the daughter, who is played by Perdita Weeks, who, it took me a second to figure out who she was. She's the younger sister of an actress that I know from another British TV series that I cannot remember at this moment. But I had to go look her up. I'm like, who the heck is she? Why does she look different? Why does she look so similar? It's Foyle's War. There it is. So you have her father, who, if I can find him, nonetheless, but, along with a few other historical people, you're going to run into, Madeline Astor and her husband. They were in fact on the Titanic. If you don't know the story of them, basically he was the big hotel magnate in New York. I don't know whether he was divorced. I think he was widowed. He married a much younger woman, who I don't know if it was of his class. And yes, they were on. I believe she survived. He did not, as most of the men didn't. But this young lady, Astor, Grox, it starts off with her protesting. She's a suffragette. Her parents, of course, she's upper class. Her father gets her out, and they're dragging her along with them because they want to get her out of trouble, because she's driving them crazy, because she's making them look bad. And so you kind of go with her flirting with other gentlemen of her class. You see a lot of the other class stuff where you have some of the second class, husband and wife who, let me see if I can see, John Bentley and his wife Muriel. Bentley works for Georgiana's father, and he's sucking up, and his wife is pissed off at him for it. Yes, you have John Jacob Astor, who's showing up here. And it's just the first episode, you really do see that snubbing, and the class separations of the difference between old money and new money, and how much they hate each other. And yeah, it's very, very interesting. Um, and you also see a little bit of some of the other characters. You have a pair of brothers, one of which they're Italian. One, the older brother, works down in the boilers. He gets his brother on board because in the first class dining room they are missing a steward. And so he's able to get on, so he becomes a first class steward. He interacts with one of the first class, or one of the second class maids, who hands the second class, as well as the servants of the first class who are in second class, which is not something I knew, but I'm pretty sure that would be historically accurate. And then you also have and I'm not sure how historically accurate this is because I didn't really look it up, the electrician on board who is Catholic. Remember, this is 1912. Ireland is still owned by the United Kingdom. Their Catholics are still looked badly upon. Okay, this is still of the time in the U.S. where Catholics need not apply would show up in windows. So this guy is very well educated. He's in charge of basically setting up the electrics in the Titanic, and it's going too slowly. So, and you kind of see him and his family getting on board, who are Irish. You find out their backstory later. So that's the first real episode, and it ends with the Titanic sinking and the Lord having issues getting his wife and daughter into ships, and eventually they're into boats. You do see Molly Brown, who shows up, the unsinkable Molly Brown, though she, again, I do not think she went by Molly Brown. Revert to, I talked more about that in I filmed this a while ago, the unsinkable Molly Brown, which is a much, much older film, which is about her, and then eventually her on the Titanic, which is the reason it's showing up this month. But she shows up and people are mad mouthing her because, again, she's new money. New money, old money, actresses, people who afforded to get into first class, and snubbing. But yeah, it ends with them basically getting on the ships, and that ends the first episode. The second episode, I believe, let me pull up in here and look at let me check on here what the second episode is. Again, I watched these last night. So the second episode has to do with Jim Maloney. So he's in charge of completing the electronics on the Titanic. And in order for him to finish, one of the guys who works building the Titanic, it's like, okay, you can have the people you want, and I'm going to give you steerage passengers with your family so they can get to New York, because he's having trouble finding jobs because he's Irish Catholic, and they're discriminatory. So you kind of go over him. His wife is not happy that they're in steerage, because, again, they're kind of more middle class. They just don't. If he'd gotten decent jobs, they probably could have afforded on their own at least second class. But they would have had to give up their, or even possibly even first class. They have multiple children. They're redheaded. Again, they're Irish. And he gets his family on. You kind of see what's going on with that. I do believe most of his family does in fact survive. I don't think he does, because his wife starts flirting with another gentleman on the ship, and they get in a fight, and he gets knocked out. I do believe him and one of his children do in fact die, and the rest of them, that's not in this episode. And then we move on to the episode 3. So this has to do with the Italian stoker, as he's considered. He's down in the furnaces, and his brother Paolo, who falls in love with one of the maids by the name of Annie Desmond. So again, she's also Italian. She's been working for the White Star Line for a while. Him and his brother Mario and Paolo are going to America to have a new life. And basically it goes through them. I believe he gets her aboard a boat. I do not remember whether or not he survives. And now moving on to the last episode, which has to do with pretty much the what happens at the end. So Paolo tries to save his brother. Various different people are locked in staterooms. Malone tries to rescue one of his children. I don't think, because she somehow disappears. I do believe they both end up going down with the ship. And basically it shows basically the people being rescued, people getting on ships, and it ends there. Okay, now here comes my issues. And I can't remember which episodes are they. And yes, you can see multiple Titanic episodes where I'm going to talking about this. They show two things that never happened. One, Bruce Ismay never argued with the creator and the designer of the ship. Bruce Ismay, again, was the head of the White Star Line. He never argued with Andrews about how many lifeboats. Didn't happen. There were more lifeboats on the Titanic than were legally required. So, and it was not common to have enough lifeboats to save everyone. It just wasn't legally required. They had more lifeboats than were legally required. Ismay had nothing to do with this. When he was on the Titanic, he was not a coward. He was a passenger. He helped get as many women and children into boats as he could. When there were no more women and children around and they couldn't find any, he got into a boat. Yes, he was vilified. No, he also did not tell them to go faster. And yes, that's shown in this. It's shown in the big James Cameron Titanic, which yes, I just filmed. No, none of this happened. Nobody can verify this. He was just vilified because he was the highest ranking person of the White Star Line on the ship to survive. So they very much, as they seem to do in various things, vilify Bruce Ismay. Again, he didn't do anything wrong. They held an inquiry. He was never charged with anything. His life was destroyed because people wanted to vilify him because he was just a scapegoat. He was a scapegoat. The other thing they show in here, and they show this in the Titanic film with James Cameron, again for dramatic effect, they did not try to keep the steerage passengers down below. They did not lock the gates. They wouldn't have done that. There was no reason to. The reason these people did not survive is because there was a good distance between the bottom of this boat and the boat deck. They just didn't get there in time. And no, they didn't fill up all the boats. That is the one thing that is in fact true. But again, the reason a lot of the steerage passengers, the women and children, did not survive is because they just, by the time they got to the boat deck, there were no more lifeboats left because they had to climb a bunch of stairs from the bottom of the ship. That's what it was. Again, this was in the James Cameron vision. It was in this. This is dramatic effect. They do the same thing with Ismay, though this was rumors that was going around. No, they were not speeding. I believe some of the stuff that I've read, one of the issues was the binoculars were locked in a cabinet and nobody had the key because there was some changing around of different people. And if they'd had the binoculars, they might have seen things. But that's neither here nor there. The Titanic sinking was an accident. And yes, it's famous because it was lost. It was a big ship. There was a lot of loss of life. And it changed the rules. So after this, they were required to have enough life rafts to fit everyone. And I believe they started being required to have at least one drill so people knew what the heck to do in case there was an emergency. So I am not, this is okay. I mean, they did it decently well. Again, you see a lot of the first class stuff. You see a lot of the class divisions. It's kind of interesting to see the one thing that is very unique in this that I haven't seen yet is looking at the interactions of the first class servants, who, yes, would have been on the ship. People had their ladies' maids, on the ships. They had their butlers and their other staff. There were people there to serve the upper class. Women, because there had to have been the ladies' maids and the gentlemen's, I sincerely cannot remember the name of the character, of the title. It's not a butler. But basically the gentleman who would help dress them. As well as the women, the ladies' maids who would help dress and do the hair of their ladies. And usually their children, and then they may have had some of their maids and stuff on there. So it's interesting to see those staff interactions, as well as some of the interactions of the workers of the ship. So that is different from, of course, the regular Titanic big film, as well as the other film that I reviewed, which was a while ago, which was had to do with Molly Brown, but that had to do with most of her life. The Titanic was at the very end. Yes, they do show her again, as I mentioned. She's a very minor character because she was, in fact, a real person. They do show the Astors on there, who are also real people. Most of the characters here are fictional. And most of this was absolute nonsense. Again, Ismay is not a villain. No, they did not lock the steerage passengers below. It's just they couldn't get up in time. So that is the end of this review. Again, this is a 4-part mini series. It is very interesting. If you're looking at Titanic films, you kind of want to look at the class divisions and some of the stuff that would have been going on in different classes and how it would affect them on the Titanic, with, again, the minus of no, they did not lock the steerage person in, and no, Ismay was not telling them to go faster, and no, he was not a villain. And no, he was not really a coward. It's just, for some reason, people, I think, expect to see this. So, because, again, this came out in 2012. I believe the original Titanic came out in 98, I think. I have a copy of it here. I think it came out in 98. Pretty positive No, it came out in 97. Wrong film. Wrong timing. So it came out in 97. So they were expecting it. So if you like what you see, be sure to like and subscribe. Check out the books I am doing for Titanic. Those are also they're also extremely interesting. I enjoyed reading the books I did for this month, as well as the next month, which is where I reviewed stuff for Angel Island. And that's the immigration station in San Francisco that has to do with the Chinese coming into the West. And I will be going after we do Angel Island. As of this moment, I have, in fact, completed all those books. I think they just have to be uploaded at this point. And I'm not too much. The Ellis Island is coming after that in June. Then I'm doing cooking in July, and space in August. I'm doing my deep dive, which I'm looking forward to, into Beauty and the Beast in September. So that will be something to look forward to, as well as looking at space, the Hindu Festival of Diwali. Beware that the books for those were filmed some time ago before I got the new setup here. And then I'm doing mysteries in December. So, as well as book series, I'm finishing up Anne of Green Gables. I will be moving on to the Boxcar Children and then the Wings of Fire. So I should be finishing up the short stories for Anne of Green Gables now. So Boxcar Children should be coming up soon. We'll also be starting homeschooling videos for kindergarten come August. So hopefully I'll get some of that stuff posted. So like and subscribe, leave a positive comment if you have one. Thank you.